fully dressed stranger arrived, and this man, Cecil, about his dying day, was Lee Harvey Oswald.
Cecil a liar.
Cecil's
So you're telling me, Cecil, small, that you not only saw the shooter of President Kennedy, a different person, but then you also met Lee Harvey Oswald.
But you can also prove that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't do it.
Didn't do it.
Yeah. And now that I'm thinking about it.
And you're blaming a Hispanic man.
No, okay, I just put this together, and I wasn't going to add this in because I think it's in poor taste. But Troy says that Virginia says that 3 black men
Yes.
were attacking her.
I mean, I'm sorry, but there's a certain, from like 1969 and before, that's all anyone ever said.
Yeah, I think from the 80s.
Yeah, you're right. It's no.
You blame it on.
People do that all the time.
Yeah. So that I'm kind of putting those things together now. So they get to the home almost an hour after the panicked call, but they couldn't get up the hill to the home because of the snow. So they left Ginny in the car, and they said, "Stay here, we're gonna run up there." And supposedly they thought 3 men were in the house, maybe not anymore, attacking, and they left her in the car at the bottom of the hill. That makes no sense.
No.
Right?
No. Also, I don't like 3 men. That's rare. That's the actual situation.
Right. But how would 3 people, 2 of whom were like able-bodied men, able to be overpowered without any defensive wounds? It couldn't have been one person. Unless, you know, some people just comply when there's a gun in their face.
Yes,
right?
a lot of people do.
Yeah, even
though
though
it's the smart thing to do.
Right. All right, so they get up the hill, they get to the house, they enter the home through a broken garage door where they found the place ransacked, and the water was still running in the tub that was full of the family. They skedaddled, I said, which I spelled right, which is weird, and jumped into the car, intending to drive off, still not having called the police. The car was stuck, so they made it to a neighbor's, and they finally called the police. So police suggested the ransacked house seemed like a stage robbery, which I'm wondering, like, you hear that all the time. I want to know if they're ever wrong about that.
That it really was ransacked.
Yeah.
Insincerity.
I feel like there can't be that huge of a difference between a ransacked because it's being burglarized.
I think when people this is just me talking off the top of my head.
Yeah, I want to know your opinion.
Okay. First of all, I want to officially change my old opinion too. I don't know why I said 1969 and below when racism is such a humongous problem in this country.
Okay.
I don't know. But I'll go ahead to again freely give my opinion. When people burglarize a house, they're looking for valuables and they know where people hide valuables.
Right.
Good burglars want to get in and get out. They don't want to wreck people's houses. They don't go through every single drawer because they know that people hide. I mean, there have been studies about it where it's like people hide their stuff in a sock drawer. People hide their stuff in a freezer. People hide their safes behind pictures.
So now everyone knows where you hide your stuff.
That's right.
They come to your house.
My safe is behind my picture. So cutting open a couch, or there's like when things are overly ruined, I think is when cops are like
furniture thrown.
Yes,
that doesn't need to be, because there's photos of the house that's ransacked, and it's like there's an ottoman like thrown onto the couch.
Yeah,
there's no reason I've done that.
Right, and also you're just taking extra time as the burglar. Mm-hmm. That could be time where the cops could be on their way. Why would you stand around throwing shit?
Well, here's the fucked up thing about this that proves they're probably right is that there was an envelope full of cash sitting like out on one of the dining room chairs, and in the photo of the crime scene you can see it. They had brought it home because they couldn't make it to the bank after.
So it was just sitting there?
So it was just sitting there, it wasn't taken.
So there's no need to put the ottoman on the couch.
No, it was a fake. I believe it was a fake ransacking, but I'm just wondering, you hear that all the time.
Oh yeah.
I wish we could look at photos. I wish like how the 911 call we wanted to do, where like we listen to 2 that are real and 1 that isn't.
Ooh, that's one I'd be willing to do.
Yeah, that's one that would give you nightmares.
That one I would love to do, because who really knows? But it would be to understand how detectives and investigators have a sense of things would be fascinating to me.
Can any detectives out there please send us crime scene photos? Don't tell
just
us.
Sneak them out of the evidence locker where the cocaine is. Sneak them out, mail them to George's secret PO
I mean,
box.
add a little Coke in there if you want.
It's not a big deal.
I won't be mad.
People do it all the time.
I'm kidding. Don't do Coke.
We all think it's bad.
Yeah. So, okay.
I'm speaking for Steve.
Steven wants the Coke.
Steven hates Coke.
So they say it's like a staged robbery. There was an envelope full of
California.
cash, and nothing much of value had been taken. And shortly after, the car that the Derms had at the house, which was from the car dealership, was found in an embankment, and it seemed like it had been placed there rather than crashed.
Mhm.
And in the back was like a pillowcase full of like some silver, some fucking silver. Nothing that,
Like utensils?
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Something a rube robber might take.
right.
A fool.
So, I mean, clearly the son-in-law. Okay, here's the fucking twist.
Okay.
40 years later, it's still unsolved.
What?
Despite all that evidence that clearly points at the son-in-law.
What do they have, like, motive that the son-in-law?
The son-in-law has never been a suspect.
Oh.
And he's a lawyer now. So, all right.
Oh.
Here's what I think happened. And Ginny was the sole inheritor, inherited $250,000
Oh shit.
in 70s money.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's $25 million in today's.
is it?
No.
Oh, wow, Karen. Oh my God.
If it's numbers, I'm definitely lying.
I love those conversions when they're like, this is how much it is in
I
today's
know.
money.
I know. I just read one today that was like 100,000 in the 70s. Ah, shit, now I don't remember what it was.
I believed you. I believed you the way
Over
that when I have to
500.
ask you about Roman numerals, like you could say anything to me and I would believe you.
That I knew. That I knew.
Okay, so
I'll always tell you when I'm lying.
I appreciate that. Okay, so I just think like he hired some hitman. If a phone call happened, it was the people at the scene saying it's done, and Ginny didn't know about it, and so he said that phone call was actually this thing instead.
Right.
Or the phone call never happened and she was in on it.
Do you think the neighbor was in on it? That it was Mr. Lucky at the assassination?
It sounds, I don't know enough about him, but based on those two little details, yes, the blaming someone else, which I don't know, was the CIA that killed Kennedy, right?
I mean,
And yeah, his getting involved in it and being a private detective, which I feel like you know more about how to commit a crime well
sure.
than otherwise.
Yeah, you see it all the time.
Yeah.
I'll say this. What's suspicious to me that just dawned on me, why would that woman call her son-in-law
Right.
instead of the cops
And
when there are 3 men in her house?
that's a good point. And in addition to that, the family didn't like the son-in-law. They were trying to get her to leave him.
Because she was only 19, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were like against this marriage. Why would she call them? And there's so many instances in this whole crime that it's like, why weren't the cops called?
Wow. Yeah.
Starting with the mother, which probably never happened. So that's why the cops were never called.
Yeah.
And then multiple times with the son-in-law and the daughter weren't called.
Right.
So,
Crazy.
and then okay. They're still looking into it. There's a $40,000 reward offered. And investigator said, in my opinion, Mrs. Durham never made that phone call. When some people come into your house to kill you, they're not going to let you make a phone call.
Right.
Of course. I speculate, yeah, maybe the call happened, but from a hitman that they hired. And, okay, I also want to give a shout out to Jody.com. No, wait, it's called I Did It for Jody, JODIE.com. That is a really cool, like, true crime blog that had a lot of good information.
Is that name in reference to Mark David Chapman?
Possibly.
Who tried to kill Reagan for Jodie Foster?
Maybe.
Oh, wait. No, I'm sorry.
Jody Arias? I've never seen you. What did I?
Just, I think I got the name wrong. Was it Hinckley? I'm
Hinckley.
thinking of John Hinckley.
I never
that tried to
even
kill
noticed.
Reagan. Mark
Yeah.
David Chapman is the one that killed John Lennon.
Yep.
And then you just threw Jodi Arias in there for fun.
Facts, you guys. We're strong on facts. So,
We're
Yeah.
passionate about a lot of different names.
I did it for Jody.com. good little true crime blog.
That's very
It
cool.
had a lot of cool information, and I fucking went all over the place with this. I was so fascinated by it. I just can't believe. Yeah, he
There's
did
just
it.
nothing.
But they didn't even. He was never even a suspect.
That's weird. It was a small town.
Small town, only unsolved murder.
Wow.
Yeah,
Is he still like? You said he became a lawyer.
he's a lawyer. He's still. They're divorced. She now won't cooperate with the cops anymore. She's like, I gave him all the information I could.
Huh.
Yeah. What do you
Wow.
think? Was that anticlimactic? Do I ask that every time?
Yeah, I think you do.
I really do.
Well, it's always when there's no resolution. I mean, it's always just it makes you want to ask 95 questions.
Which are the ones I love. I love when there's I love a good mystery.
You know what I was thinking about is that other one that you had that was from Japan or whatever.
Yes.
Where they killed the family.
Totally.
I think about that one all the time.
Who the fuck was it?
What?
It's enough
Why?
information that it should have been able to be solved. That drives me crazy.
Well, the frustrating thing too is that it's not like when you're on this side of it and you don't know, you have it in your head that it's going to be some fascinating reveal.
Yeah.
And it's always like, oh, that guy. Like,
That's why, yeah. I mean,
it's
that's
irritating.
why I like cold cases, because you can imagine that it's deeper than just the stupidity of they're killing someone.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we're
What's
back.
that?
I had a lot of questions back then. Do you have any answers now?
I do. I have actual
What was
updates. And
They
this
were
case, I would
wise
call
out.
it solved,
Oh,
but there's still a mystery. So it's
That
kind
was
of
on the radio
like,
show?
kind of
Yeah.
comforting. So 50 years after the murders in 2022, officials identified the perpetrators of this crime because the case was
It
reopened in
sounded like something was
2019
opening in the
after a
car.
man came forward saying that his father once admitted to
That's
killing
all
3
like
people
that
in the North
here.
Carolina mountains during a thunderstorm. And so the father's name was Billy Sunday Burt, and he was the only suspect still alive, and he
Shepherd
gave up the names of his accomplices, which were Bobby Jean Gaddis, Charles David Reed, and someone named Billy Wayne Davis, which is actually the name of a comedian friend of ours. So that's kind of fucking crazy, right?
that's truly wild. I mean,
he's not involved.
he's truly not involved, really not his style.
Not at all.
Actually, is a part of our origin story.
Totally.
He was there when we first met and first started talking
Yeah,
about
he's
fucked up
married
shit.
to Aaron Dewey Lennox. And so all of these people were members of the so-called Dixie Mafia, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
And so the Dixie Mafia, according to NBC News, is a Georgia-based, loosely organized network believed to have engaged in dozens of violent crimes across the Southeast in the 1960s and the 1970s. So it's the Mafia, it's the South.
Yeah.
The thing is, Davis confirms that the killing was a contract killing,
Mm.
but the problem is we don't know who the person who ordered it was and why. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a big deal.
It's very important.
Yeah. And we speculate so much in the story that I'm kind of uncomfortable with it. We do it in a way that we did in the beginning, where we didn't think about who we were throwing accusations at.
Right.
Like the daughter, the son-in-law. Like we never said alleged until much later.
Of course not.
Yeah.
It's true. We were just sitting there, like laying on a couch in your
Yeah.
apartment, thinking like we were just
Hypothesizing.
postulating. Yes.
Totally.
Exactly.
Yes.
Just like what if, and
yes.
that kind of sensitivity. It just took us. That's a perspective I just wasn't considering.
Right. And I
at
feel
all.
the same way about the John Benet Ramsey case, where it's just like, how fun is it just to be like, what if it's this? What if it's that? What if it's that? But we're doing it in public, and what if more than likely it's not?
Right.
And you're just causing more pain and wounds. So
Right, and it goes hand in hand with like we're not the kind of people that would assume a bunch of people would want to listen
Right.
to us do what we're doing.
right.
And that was like that's just our, that's our learning curve.
Yeah.
That makes this show a little painful and a little like we don't want to look back and be like, oh, that means we're bad people.
Yeah.
Because there is a real naivete, if not straight up ignorance.
Right.
in
And as we
doing
say,
it.
we were always like working from the place where it was, which was, people claiming on newspapers that fucking Burke Ramsey did it. It's like that was the culture.
We're the National Enquirer generation,
Yeah.
where that little murdered girl's face was on that newspaper in the grocery store. When you were 15 years old, you were staring at her every single day.
Yeah, you're desensitized too. Completely.
Yeah.
And so the son-in-law, Troy, passed away in 2019. It remains unclear if he had any involvement whatsoever. And yeah, that's it. So I don't know if we'll ever know who ordered that hit.
Wow.
I know.
I wonder if there's like Dixie Mafia, there's a file cabinet somewhere.
Oh, you gotta hope.
That's just like some weird reveal where, at some point.
Hey, was your grandpa in the Dixie Mafia? Will you tell us about it at myfavouritemurder@gmail.com? That has to be a hometown, right?
Yeah, for real. Get any kind of Dixie Mafia, anything that you might know.
Yeah.
For a second, I thought you were asking me if my grandpa was, right? I'm like, my grandpa was from Galway, Ireland.
Yeah, right. Almost as likely as my grandpa being. All right, so let's listen to Karen's story. This one.
Oh.
This is an epic, classic MFM. It has classic merch, but we're going to tell you about too.
Classic merch that I wear around the office every day.
I mean, it's still like one of the, I think it's like up there with Mary Vincent's story of like, core memories of stories.
In my heart, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so this is Karen's story about the survival of Terry Jo Duperalt.
All right, well, you want to hear mine?
Absolutely.
Well, mine is pretty interesting. I remembered that I read this book called, let me see.
The Bible?
God, I love it, and I'm here to tell you about it, too. It's called Alone, Orphaned on the Sea,
Ooh.
which is what I wanted to call my book, but forget it. Oh, sorry, Orphaned on the Ocean. I can call mine Orphaned on the Sea now. So, I got really into, for a little while, before I ever saw the show I Survived, which I cannot get on the Lifetime on my Apple TV. I can't get it on my laptop.
Oh my gosh.
I can't, it will not let me access, even for money, it won't let me watch old episodes of I Survived. And I think that's wrong, and someone needs to do something.
We need, listen, is it Lifetime?
Well, it's like lifetime.com. They
Lifetime?
only have them on their website, I think.
You're missing out on a great opportunity for a shout out, and instead Karen's just disappointed.
I'm just mad. But I love all your movies. Anyhows, so I read that I was got into these stories of survival for a little while in the, I would say, mid-90s. Maybe I was having a hard time myself. I can't remember. And I remember reading this book and being fascinated by it. And the thing that drew me to the book initially is on the cover of the book, there's a picture, and it's just the open ocean, and then in the middle, a tiny white raft and a little girl sitting in it.
No, is it a photograph?
It's a photograph of the person I'm about to tell you about and how she was found.
Losing my mind. Can I look at the photo? Should I wait? I'm gonna wait.
I have the picture on my phone for you.
Everyone go look at the Durham family murder bathtub scene, and then it's not gruesome, except they're all dead. Oh my God, this little girl.
Alone, orphaned on the ocean.
Shit.
All right, so this is the story of Terry Jo Duperalt, and she was from Green Bay, Wisconsin. When this happened to her, she was 11 years old, and her father, Arthur, was an optometrist also from Green Bay, obviously. She wasn't from a different area. And Arthur had always dreamed of taking a year off and sailing around, like the Bahamas, basically sailing the world with his family. He had been in World War II, and he had been in like the tropics, and so he thought that would be amazing, especially it was coming up on winter in Green Bay.
Oh, fuck that.
And yeah, right. So he'd always wanted to basically live on a boat for like a year.
Okay.
And so his idea was, this is going to take the family down to the Bahamas. They're going to rent a sailboat and try it out for a week, see if the kids actually like it or if he's just full of beans, and then see where their adventure will take them. Okay, so they fly down to Florida, and they charter a two-masted sailboat called the Bluebell. And they hire Captain Julian Harvey, who is a former Air Force fighter pilot, and an experienced sailor, and they have him captain the ship. And
does that seem weird to like be like my whole family and some guy?
yeah, well, the guy brought his wife Mary.
Okay.
So I think they were kind of acting as like the casual crew.
It was a swinger situation.
It was super key party. So because this was also in this was 1961.
Okay.
So they sailed out of Florida on November 8th, 1961, and they sailed east toward the island of Bimini.
Ooh. Bimini Bill. Sorry.
And then they went on to Sandy Point on the Great Abaco Island, and the family spent a week there, snorkeling and collecting shells on pink and white beaches. They just had a gorgeous vacation, and they had such a good time that Dr. Dupereau told the village commissioner, because they had to fill out paperwork to go back to America, that he planned to return before Christmas. So they were super into the sailboating family dream.
Cool.
So then they left and they set sail for home. And that night around 9 p.m., Terry Jo headed downstairs to her sleeping quarters in the back of the boat. Her brother and little sister had stayed upstairs in the cockpit with the parents. And around 11, she woke up because she heard her brother yelling, "Daddy, help." And then she heard stomping sounds, and then it went quiet. And she laid in her bunk, shaking and confused and not sure what was going on.
And she's 11?
She's 11 years old.
Oh my gosh, okay.
So finally, she sneaks up to the main cabin, and she sees her mother and brother lying in a big pool of blood.
Holy shit.
So she said the second she saw them, she knew they were dead. So she went past them and snuck up to the cockpit hatch, and she stuck her head out, and she saw more blood on the deck, and she saw a knife on the ground.
Oh my god.
So she crawls out of the hatch because she's trying to find her dad, and Captain Harvey runs at her and growls, "Get back down there," and pushes her down the stairs.
Holy shit.
So she closes her eyes, runs past her brother and mom, and goes back to her bunk and goes back to her cabin and gets back in the bunk. And she lays there, she doesn't know what to do. She's obviously probably in shock, freaking out. Then she hears sloshing, and she looks down, and the floor of her sleeping quarters is covered in oily water. And she realizes the ship is sinking.
Oh my god.
So she's afraid to move, but she looks up, and then suddenly the captain's standing in the doorway staring at her, and he's carrying her brother's rifle. And he stares at her for a little bit, then he just turns and walks away. So she lays in bed, frozen stiff, doesn't know what to do. But pretty soon the water's up to her mattress.
Oh my god.
So she knew she had to get out of there. So she wades through waist deep water, out of her cabin, out of her quarters, out through the main cabin. She goes back up on deck, and she looks over the side, and she sees that the life raft is already in the water. And Captain Harvey walks up to her and hands her the rope that connecting the life raft, and says, "Hold on to this, I'll be back in a second." And she's in such shock and fear, she drops the rope. And so as he's walking away, he looks and sees that the rope is going and the dinghy's starting to float away.
God.
So he dives in after it, and and she watched him swim after the boat and disappear into the night.
Oh my god, I have so many questions. Go on.
I stole that last line directly from the Reader's Digest article that I was reading about this story. I read several articles about it, but Reader's Digest was the main one, and I just want to thank them for being an American classic.
I missed that. I used to read this when I was a kid. That's all I read.
When you went to the bathroom at your aunt's house?
I didn't want to say it.
It's all about Reader's Digest.
Oh man, cover to cover.
So, okay. So, it's an 11-year-old girl standing on a sinking boat.
Fuck.
Who's witnessed her family murdered, part of her family murdered. What does she do? Does she cry? Does she cower? No. She remembers that there is a small cork life raft in the cockpit.
Mm-hmm.
So she runs and grabs it. And as she does, as she grabs a hold of it, and they don't describe this that much, but she basically runs forward to the front of the boat, grabs the life raft, and by the time she gets there, the boat is sinking under her feet. So she has just enough time to jump onto it as the boat goes under the water.
Whoa.
So she basically went down with the ship and then jumped onto this little cork life raft.
Holy shit.
So now she's alone at sea in a tiny raft. It's 3 feet long. I mean, you saw it in that picture. She doesn't fit into it. She couldn't lay down in it. It's half her. It's probably like can hold her legs. So she has a blouse and pants on. She's freezing cold. It's pitch black. There's no moon out. She can't see, so she keeps getting hit with huge waves. And the salt water's getting in her eyes and stinging her eyes. She can't open her eyes, and she's afraid that Captain Harvey is nearby.
Oh my God.
So then it starts raining. So her first night out in the water, bad news.
Okay.
Anytime you're lost, you're out at sea, I wouldn't be looking for good news.
Although I wonder if that not salt water that it was raining down was helpful in some way, like she could drink it or something.
Oh, maybe. You mean hydration wise?
Yeah.
For a second, I thought you meant, I wonder if she was in a freshwater ocean.
Was she in a fish den?
Was she? Did she go to Lake Havasu? Okay. So she wakes up the next morning. The sun comes out. She's not cold anymore. Now, of course, she's boiling hot.
Oh, I've seen Joe versus Volcano. I know what it's like.
Okay, yeah, you know what it's like to be on a raft.
Sure.
But his raft was nice.
It was pretty sweet.
It was huge. And he had that great suitcase.
Yeah.
Her raft was slowly disintegrating.
No.
Yes.
Sweet baby angel.
So she has to hang her legs over the side to float, like the plastic rubbery part that has the air in it is the part that's not disintegrating. So she has to sit on the edge and then hang her legs over the side. Then parrotfish come and start biting her legs.
What are parrotfish? They sound like dicks.
I don't know.
It sounds like they start biting her legs.
I bet they're the ones that you see in tropical fish tanks.
Yeah.
They think they're all big with their fancy colors and their teeth.
Fucking shark food.
So, that's her first day. It sucks. The next day,
It's her first day. It sucks.
It sucks.
This is the best description I've ever heard.
The next day she wakes up, her tongue is swelling in her mouth because of all the salt that she's taking in and no hydration. And then she sees a plane. And she's waving. She takes her shirt off and waves and waves and waves this white shirt over her head. It dips down toward her a little bit and then flies away and never comes back.
Wait, no.
Yeah.
That was how she was gonna get saved.
Nope. So that afternoon, she spots some shapes swimming in the water about 30 yards away, and she's scared to death because she thinks they're sharks.
Friend or foe?
When they come closer, it's a pod of porpoises that swim with her
No.
for hours and hours.
Never. No.
Now we all cry at the beauty of nature.
Are you? This
Yeah.
is 100% we're sure. of
Yes.
this.